Strange Magic is a movie that I've decided to review for a specific reason. You see, I saw a couple of really negative reviews of this movie, and I ultimately decided to go ahead and check it out myself since it turned out to become on Netflix. So I decided to watch it for myself out of curiosity just to see whether or not it was actually that bad. And as I watched it for myself, I kind of got my own unique opinions on it. This movie was directed by George Lucas, the guy who brought you such masterpieces such as Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Star Wars Prequels. Now, I do get that George Lucas actually also came up with the original Star Wars and Indiana Jones trilogies, but remember that, for starters, when he made Indiana Jones, the original trilogy, he had Steven Spielberg's help. That and George Lucas made the Star Wars trilogy, and he was underneath a lot of guidance, and a lot of people controlled him and told him what to do. But he was in full control of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Star Wars prequels, and while there are fans of both movies out there, let's face it, the majority of people think that these movies suck. So now we see George Lucas try to make a animated film, and apparently his motivation for this movie was because his Star Wars movies were sort of the adventure movies for boys, and he wanted an adventure movie for girls, and so he decided to make Strange Magic. And boy, this movie is strangely no improvement of George Lucas's other works. So what's the story for Strange Magic? Because that's something I try and do in all of my reviews. In all of my reviews, I try to give the movie a description as to what the film is about, like the overall main plot. And the plot for Strange Magic is that there's a fairy kingdom divided with a dark forest, and there's sort of like a conflict, and the main protagonist starts to sort of fall in love with this other guy. I don't know his name, but eventually it turns out this guy cheats on her. So there's this misunderstanding / being cheated on, so they kind of break up, but the guy wants the female main protagonist back, and so he sends somebody else to go and get this love potion for her, so he can force her to fall in love with her. And if you think the story sounds stupid for this movie, you are absolutely right. But before I dive into why this is a bad movie, I do want to quickly start off with the positives. Besides, the animation is actually rather impressive. The design choices are rather safe, considering it looks very similar to Epic. Everyone and his brother who saw this movie has been saying that, but it's true, it really looks a lot like Epic. But the environments and even the character designs look rather well animated. There's a pretty good resolution, and the overall movie, it looks pretty good. It's a good, sleek looking movie. It's also got a couple sword fight action scenes that I thought were pretty cool. I will get more in detail about the writing, but as far as the actors go, they do a pretty solid performance, I guess. They are passable. Alright, now down to the negatives / criticisms. For starters, the story. There really isn't one. Honestly, the first half of the movie felt like just some sort of random event, like a character doing something to another event, that a character was like sort of doing something in another event and another event, and they don't really feel like they're connecting. It's just sort of like an everyday life or something. It just doesn't feel like a story. It feels like these just random events. And it doesn't feel like until we're around like halfway through the movie until the plot feels like it actually starts going somewhere. And I think I understand why, and I'll go more detail about that later on. The movie is also very, very cliched. And let me say that if you hate true love cliches in Disney movies like Frozen, Tangled, or Princess and the Frog, or any other Disney movie that has all that true love cliche stuff, well, you're gonna hate this movie with a passion, because that is the entire conflict of this movie. People loving and hating each other at sometimes literally the first sight. Characters just start to like each other just because. And also the movie's plot device. Okay, I'm going to compare this movie to the plot device that was used in Inside Out. Inside Out's plot device were the core memories. That was a metaphoric way that sort of helped engage with the story and suited the overall plot of the movie. and became very metaphoric and very psychological that helped with the movie's overall metaphors, and people are now able to use it as psychology to help educate their kids about overall psychology, emotion, and mental illnesses. And Strange Magic's main plot device is a drug. I'm not even kidding, it's actually a drug. This film was made for kids, but as if the story wasn't bad enough, the characters make the movie even worse, because every single character in the movie are one-dimensional stereotypes. Since there's a character like this girly, fairy main protagonist who's just sort of happy and in love and all this stuff, the guy that she's in love with happens to cheat on her, and so she immediately turns around and then she just completely changes her clothes and starts getting a sword and starts trying to be this all-powerful, strong female character and everything in the flick of a switch. Which is funny considering that's the exact opposite of the main protagonist of the last movie I reviewed. And even this is really cliche, the whole, I don't need your help because I can take care of myself. That is also very cliche in movies nowadays. Seriously, just because your main protagonist kind of saves the day at the end and has a sword doesn't automatically make them interesting. They need to have engaging and likable personalities, as well as actively do stuff. And yes, she has a sword, but it's in the flick of a switch, like it's just really, really poor writing. Another thing that annoys me about this character, and I've actually been doing a lot of research on how to write good characters since I really want to get into filmmaking, and I actually want to learn more about writing good scripts and that sort of thing. And in my research recently, I've been doing some discovering in how if you want to write a good main protagonist, you need 3 things to write good characters. You need a main protagonist, you need a character, that character needs to want something, and there needs to be conflict. All 3 of those are very important, and if you're missing just one of those, you're not going to have a good story. The entire first half of the movie or something, the main protagonist doesn't really seem to want something except for the fact, oh, you cheat on me, I just want to be a strong character now. She doesn't seem to want to achieve, like she doesn't have any clear goals in mind until halfway through the film, which is why it feels very sloppy, which is why the story is such a sloppy, well, story, in my opinion. She doesn't seem to want anything until something happens halfway through the film. So since this main character doesn't seem to want anything, we have no reason to root for this main protagonist because she doesn't want anything. And lastly, let's get into the most infamous part of the movie, the music, the soundtrack, because they're singing in this movie, lots and lots of singing. In fact, I've actually heard that apparently the soundtrack contains of 13 songs in this movie. This movie has pretty much the same amount of singing in it as Into the Woods. And if you've seen Into the Woods, then you know that, yeah, that's a lot of singing. It's no exaggeration to say that there'd be a 3-minute musical number or something, like a 3-minute long musical number, and then they'll have like 1 minute of dialogue or something, and immediately go back into more singing with another musical number. I'm not even exaggerating, that's how the movie goes. And what's really sad is that not one of the songs fit the movie's tone because none of the music was written specifically for the movie. Say what you want about Let It Go from Frozen. Love the song, hate the song, whatever, say what you want about it. But at least I actually would praise that song considering it was written for the movie and it was used to somewhat drive the story forward. Like, this movie is like sort of like this fairy movie in a way, and yet a lot of the soundtrack are pop songs with electric guitars, and the music they sing, like some of the songs that play through the movie, I just went, oh my goodness, really? They used this song? Like, and within the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, the character's going, don't worry about a thing, every little thing, it's gonna be alright. And I'm thinking, what's the purpose of using that song? Like, there's nothing really bad going on. What's the point of that song? With all these problems, the music in this movie becomes so ridiculous that it unintentionally becomes funny. They actually do at one point make fun of the amount of singing that they do in this movie. And since they were making fun of it, it actually was the funniest joke in the movie. If the movie actually took the sense of humor in that direction for the entire film, it probably would have been a funnier movie. So overall, do I recommend this movie? It depends. if you want to watch this movie, like you want to watch a good movie, you want to take it seriously, or you're a parent and you want to show your kid a movie, then I recommend you avoid this movie like the plague, because it's a really bad story with really terrible characters. And also, if you want to show your kids this, I don't recommend you do, because yes, if you have a girl who's like younger than 10 and she may enjoy the movie, but there's quite a bit of content in this movie that would have me hesitate in letting kids watch it, because like I said, the main plot point of the movie involves a drug, and there's all this love cliche and everything. If you want to show your kid a animated film that came out in 2015, then show your kid Inside Out. It's a much better movie. However, if you're one of those who like, you know about story and character development and you can spot cliches and stereotypes, and you don't really, like, if you're one of those people, then I honestly recommend you watch this movie underneath the circumstances that you watch it as if you're about to watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie, like The Happening or Last Airbender or After Earth. Imagine you're watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie and you just want to view it as a comedy, and you can just make fun of the stereotypes, the cliches, and the music and all that stuff. Because if you view it as a comedy and those aspects I just mentioned are the punchlines and the jokes of the movie, then this movie will become really funny. But if you take this movie seriously, if you want to take it seriously, then I just recommend you avoid it like the plague. It's a bad movie. And so that is my review for Strange Magic. I just wanted to review this movie because I had my own unique thoughts on it. So, I will see you in another video. Hasta la vista, baby.